Podcast. Shame on you! Shame on you! My name is Ella Indy, and I'm one half of the NWA Women's World Tag Team Champion. And I'm Kimmy Page, the other half of the NWA World Women's Tag Team Champion. And you better go listen to the Alliance Blog. What is it called again? Podcast. Period. Or you're ugly. Period. 3 hour approved.
This is Lois Rain here, and I'm advising you to do yourself a favor and watch the Alliance Guys podcast. Are you ready?
Power. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm building an alliance. God bless the internet.
Okay, let's party.
It's showtime.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, Jaden, DKM, and J. Cal.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance, the United Wrestling Network, and damn it, pro wrestling in general. We're here, the Kings of Talk. That is our name. And I have the fly honeys that like the champagne. What, DKM, how are you, sir?
I'm here. I'm good. I'm ready for bed.
You're here. You're alive. Damn it. The world is ours to conquer, and that's what we're going to do tonight, I think, here on the Alliance Guys podcast. I was watching the clip, the intro clip for this live stream, and I don't know if you ever spoke about it before, but do you know there's like there's only one NWA clip in the whole thing?
Well, whose fault is that, Mr. The one that puts all this stuff together?
It's actually kind of brilliant if you think about it because, well, I know you've been here since day one. I know you remember the original message board from the NWA that we both chatted on. And then years later, when that board disappeared and your pal Jay, who wanted to help build that community, created his own message board under the Alliance board, I think is what it was, or something like that. And we had, it was a website and a message board. The original name of the website was National Wrestling Alliance Fansite.blogspot.com.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the plan was to have that as a placeholder till something better came along. And then when you start hearing about how litigious the NWA started to become, and this was even before the Bruce Tharp era, I thought, there's going to be a point in time when I'm not going to love everything the NWA says, and I'm not going to love everything that the NWA does. So better to break off and have my own name and identity that's not directly connected to the NWA, because if we ever decide to part terms, I don't want them to come after me and take what we built. So thus the Alliance blog was born.
Go Alliance Blog.
Go Alliance Blog. I want to say what's up to our pals who are in the chat already. I see Tim from the Alliance Gold is in the chat. Of course, you guys know Tim from the other Alliance guys. Last night was like the first episode that I was so busy and had so much crap going on. I didn't have a minute to even jump on and watch it. So I hope they had a good live stream yesterday. Noob is in the house. This gentleman named Devin Mercer's in the chat.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, our pal Jeremy, Championship Wrestling from Jeremy, also another Alliance guys. He's here, and he wants to remind you guys, don't forget that thumbs up to like, share, and with your friends, and that subscribe button if you feel so inclined. The subscriptions continue to grow. I don't understand it. DK, I've told you this offline, and just full transparency here. I don't understand. I don't know what the algorithm actually is. I don't know what I'm doing, but for whatever reason, it's working. In the last 7 days, there's been another 130 subscribers. I can't tell you why all this is happening. I'm just happy that it is. You know what I mean? We're at 3.12K subscribers. And it was just like a week ago, we were at 3,000. And just a few days before that, we were like 2,800. And then like at the end of the year, we just passed 2,000. I don't understand, but I'm not angry at it. You know what I mean? I'll take what we can get. But again, without getting too emotional or anything like that, it's humbling because this is a cooperative, although it says the Alliance Blog, and that's kind of like my nomenclature. This is a cooperative community. You guys have helped grow this community just as much as anyone else has. And we have our Discord that you guys are always active in there. That link is in the video description. Of course, we're on all social medias. You guys are active, and like Noob even tagged us tonight. Noob, who's in the chat right now, said, "Hey, I'm gonna check out a movie later, but first I'm gonna watch the Alliance Guys podcast." I mean, that's cool, man. He doesn't have to do that, but he's just helping people remember, like, hey, if you guys want to listen to some wrestling, go listen to the Alliance Guys. They're gonna talk about wrestling. That's pretty cool.
What's wrestling?
Wrestling? Would it be better if I said wrestling? Noob has got some late breaking news. I learned a new FTW and NWA show is going to happen the day after the Royal Rumble FTW and NWA showdown. Let's hope that Brian Otto gets another chance to turn FTW wrestling into a territory. Well, he's got to lose the belt, Noob. That's what Billy told him, right? He can't be champion entering into the NWA agreement. That's just the weirdest thing. Our pal James H. Jackson's in the house. I call James the Scoops, man. If you and James are pals on Twitter, man, you're getting all the scoops. Let's see. And then Mike is here. If you're shitting, get on and push that W. Oh my God. Jeez, Mike. I should read those before I post them. I wish I had your number when I start, so push W. Push the W. All right, well, hey, push the W. We have 6. Well, no, they have actually a lot more flavors. Oh, my head's in the way. My head was in the way, DK. W is a great jitterless energy drink when your brain isn't working like mine today. You pour yourself a W, put 16 ounces of water in it, and drink it up. Woo! And then you're ready to rock and roll. You look kind of bored, DK.
Me bored? Never. I am the happiest, most enthusiastic person I happen to know.
Just remember, if you swipe right, it means you're gonna link up with them.
You know, I hate it when you accidentally swipe right, don't you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, curious. Just curious.
I'm a happily married spud here.
Okay. Then how did you know about the swipe right?
Because social media tells you everything you need to know about everything you need to know.
That's why I try to stay off it as much as possible.
Woo wings, the wings of a champion. Hey, you know, that's interesting. I just had a thought. Because, you know, our other sponsor, I mean, when I say sponsor, I mean, I guess they're our broadcasting partner because they're not really sponsoring me until somebody buys something. But Trophy Smack, I showed you guys in the past our fantasy baseball title. I don't have it anymore because it is now in possession of the person who holds the title, the one who won our tournament. And I've never even met this person, so I'm scared to death that I'm never going to see that belt again. But the plan is to make it an alliance belt. And I'm wondering, should we put W signage on the side of it? Is that too much?
I don't know. That could be cool.
Maybe W would pay attention to me then. Hey, W, pay attention to me.
Pay attention!
Tim, I'm working on it. I don't know if they want me. I tried the one that you guys recommended, and I reached out to them, and I filled out the affiliate stuff, and they're not biting. So I would say just go ahead and use whatever VPN you feel most comfortable with until I tell you one that's going to pay me for you to use them, and then you feel free to switch.
I use a VPN.
The Alliance guys and the other Alliance guys side play. Oh, that's not a bad idea. That's not, you know what? That's not a bad idea, Tim. Huh. What we need, you know what we really need?
$1 billion.
Well, yeah, that too. But like for the pre-party, I kind of developed a logo specific to the pre-party. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but during, when we're trying to publicize it, oh, that's not a good way to show you. Let me see. If you guys can't tell, like we don't have a whole lot to talk about today, so we're just going to talk about anything and everything, and we're not really. This is kind of a free for all. And those.
What's the title of the show?
The Mulligan Stew.
Mulligan Stew. And what is Mulligan Stew, Jay?
No, I don't know. You never told me, and I told you I didn't. I know what a mulligan is. That's when you mess up. You ask for a mulligan, and they mess up.
I want to embarrass you on the show. No, Mulligan Stew was from the Depression era, and it was based on the idea of an Irish stew, lamb or beef, except for it was basically made with whatever you had, because Depression era things were in short supply or you couldn't afford them. Now, I'm about to sneeze all over the place, so when I mysteriously disappear for a couple minutes, you all will know why. And so yeah, Mulligan Stew was just a mix of what you had.
It's a menagerie. It's a group chat. It's a free for all, if you will. And that's there goes DK. And that's kind of what tonight is. It's a free for all. We're gonna hit up whatever topic that the chat seems to steer us. But I was gonna point out like this: the pre-party logo is this red bird with obviously the pre-party written on top of it. That's kind of been the pre-party logo. You guys are familiar with the Alliance guys logo because that's basically this one. Money Mike, that's right. Beef Club, beef cubes plus whatever's in the fridge equals Mulligan Stew. Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of what we're doing tonight. Let's talk about what you guys want to talk about. This is kind of going to be what the NWA is for the foreseeable future. Is we're just going to be here in a pause. Now, of course, they did show some best of moments on Tuesday night, but it's nothing that we haven't already seen. It's nothing that's been new, and it's kind of hard to get excited about stuff that we've already saw, months and years ago. Sure, that promo with Eli Drake was a lot of fun, but like, I don't know, maybe show a match.
Yeah, that's no fun. They probably can't.
Why can't they? Okay,
Maybe.
You know what the real reason why they can't? Think of all the single matches Eli Drake had in the NWA.
I try not to.
I'm going to pull it up. That's okay. See, now we have direction. Now I know where we're going for the moment. And this is where, like, I kind of get frustrated with United Wrestling Network too, because there is a vault of riches of these matches, like especially for Eli Drake, LA Knight on Fox, on SmackDown, on WWE SmackDown. There's a wealth of matches that feature LA Knight. If you look, he had there was a tag team match where Eli Drake and James Storm took on Aaron Stevens. They're the tag champions. But a single one-on-one match with Eli Drake, he defeated Mr. Anderson at the NWA Into the Fire pay-per-view. That match hasn't been seen by a lot of people because it was on a pay-per-view. Also, Eli Drake versus Caleb Conley. That match, again, that was like the first episode of Power. So many people might have missed that. Those are two matches that you could have had with that promo. That literally could have been Power on last night or Tuesday night. Just talking about, the history of some of where their stars have come and gone. This week could have been LA Knight. Next week could have been maybe a Thunder Rosa or Eddie Kingston. Hell, Eddie Kingston had some matches in the NWA, right? Your silence is worrying me.
I don't think we're supposed to talk about stuff like that. Now, I mean, can I be honest with you?
Sure.
I didn't watch the thing because I really don't care for retrospective and history type things or whatever. And I don't know that anything would have been, drawn, having him on there doing a promo, having him on there wrestling, Bob the Builder. I don't know that it would have made a hell of a lot of difference. So if you're either going to watch the show because you're a hardcore NWA fan, or you're not going to watch it because I never watched the year-end shows on any of the other wrestling things. I don't watch WWE's year-end shows. I don't watch WWE that much at all. But even back in the days when I watched wrestling, I never watched the year-end shows. So I already know what happened.
Sean Mega, I don't know if he's echoing your sentiment, but he said, I personally think it's Bush League to show matches with WWE wrestlers that are not there. And I kind of see that perspective, but at the same time, it's like they're taking a knee. So what better way to introduce your product to maybe people who are unfamiliar with it as you're getting ready to launch on a new chapter of the promotion than like, hey, these are some of the people that used to be here. So I guess it's just kind of a difference of opinion, Sean. I don't think personally, I don't have a problem with it. I also understand though that it's not for everybody. And like DK said, he doesn't really want to go see a not collaboration, the wrong word, a best of. He already saw all of it. And I'll be honest, I didn't watch it either. But there was no need to. Now, Sean Mega also asked, why not promote the January 28th show? Because, well, technically the January 28th show, the one in Cleveland, that is technically not, it's not the NWA, it's NWA Exodus Pro. And I know before you say, well, what's the difference? Well, the NWA is the promotion that we cover every Tuesday with the pre-party and every Thursday with the Alliance Guys podcast. Exodus Pro, although it's an NWA territory, it still hasn't kind of reached that level yet. And we did talk a little bit about it on Tuesday. And I'm sure we will talk a little bit about it. But, I mean, what is there to talk about? We want to talk about Tiffany Nieves and Natalia Markova? You want to talk about Rex Brody and J-Rock versus Faith in Nothing? You know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about? We're going to talk about the Slime Balls versus Luke Curtis and Carson Drake.
I don't ever want to talk about the Slime Balls.
I mean, sure, we could talk about Richard Holiday and Lord Crew.
Please,
or we could talk about EC3 versus Ashton Day. But again, like, those aren't really like, and maybe these aren't the matches Sean was talking about. These are on the 27th. And I know our pal Noob said there's something was happening on the 28th, but I I haven't heard anything about it yet.
I was going to say, I honestly don't know what's going on. I did have a question for you, though. If you can go click on Kayfabe Soup, yeah, that's the one. NWA is launching on the same CW that NXT is. That's WWE eyeballs. I'm going to disagree. Launching on CW, the corporate thing, but not the same one that NXT is on. Now, maybe they'll do some cross-promoting of the thing, but there is a difference between being an app on TV. And with all due respect to our favorite lady of wrestling, Poyo, who Jay spent 2 hours talking with on Tuesday. Go back and watch that. It was a lot of fun. And there is still a difference between an app and TV. And I hear people, and I'll say that until the day the World Series is only available by app. I'll say that until the day the Super Bowl is only available by app. Yes, the world has changed, but let's not go crazy in stating. Now, is the NWA being on CW app a bigger, better placement for them? Honestly, I don't know. But I assume it's going to make more money, and that's something that's necessary. But that does beg a question. How do we judge success today? Back in the territory days, you judged it by your gates. And TV was simply what they call those things? No.
A fad?
No. When there'd be like a half hour or hour advertisement in the middle of the night.
Infomercial.
Infomercial. Okay. TV was basically an infomercial for wrestling, the studio shows and stuff like that. It was there for the purpose of selling your live events. That's why they were all quote unquote squash matches, basically, with the occasional mid-card main event or the occasional main event thrown in just to keep the fans interested. But its purpose was to sell the show. So back in the day, you judge your success by your gates. Well, then WWE and then WWF and WCW, they basically turned it into a television rivalry, which wasn't WWF's plan, by the way. If you go back and watch the early episodes of Raw, it's very much not studio program, but still basically enhancement matches. Here are some of our stars, blah, blah, blah. Not much different than some of the other TVs. It just happened to be during prime time. And so, when Sean Waltman beat Scott Hall and the 1, 2, 3 kid was born, that was their thing. For months, they lived off that. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
And, 7 months later, they're still saying anything can happen, and they're showing that.
Yeah.
And so, but then during the heated rivalry after Nitro's launched and everything like that, well, then you're judging it by its ratings. Who's beating who in the ratings? Okay, well, we've moved on now. And ratings aren't as important as they used to be because there are other methods of consuming stuff. Still, probably more people are going to consume on TV than are going to consume on apps at this point. But you have this new way, and we will likely never know how many people see it on CW. YouTube was nice; it showed us.
Yeah.
We'll never know. We'll never know if 5,000 people are watching or if 105,000 people are watching. And so now this new thing with social media, with shorts, with shows, with apps. How do we judge success? Now in WWE, the way you judge success is, can I get more money for the same show than I got last time when TV rights come up? And, I don't know if that's, and for WWE, you can kind of do that. For AEW, you can also kind of do that. You can kind of look and go, well, does Warner Brothers Discovery still want them? Are they willing to pay more money for them, the same amount of money for them? Or are they willing to say, hey, we'd rather have, WWE program, excuse me. And so, and I don't have an answer, by the way. I'm asking kind of a generic, semi-rhetorical question, which is how do we judge success today? Now, I'm assuming they're on CW because it's going to give them a lot more money. So that's possible. Polio thought that they think it'll get them a different audience to reach out to them. I honestly don't know. I've never had the CW app. I've never watched anything on the CW app. I don't know what's on the CW app. I mean, I downloaded it once they said some of those older Power episodes are on, but I've never even watched them on, CW.
Well, just to answer your question, because I did, I see they have it good with a guy like me because, they tell me jump and I'll say how high. Hey, that bridge over there, you need to jump off of it. Cool, let's go. On the CW app, shows that are there are kind of like the shows that, that kind of highlighted the WB, UPN, and CW throughout the year. So, like, the first thing that I saw on there was, like, Dawson's Creek. The Arrowverse shows, like Arrow and The Flash and all the DC television properties were available there. So like, and then like Riverdale, which I think is a loosely based off of the Archie comics, I guess. And I'm sure like you'll find Buffy the Vampire Slayer there if you look hard enough. So I did see that. And then the shows on there, like Poyo made a point to say how good it looked on the app. To me, it didn't look much different, but I'm sure like to a more trained eye, maybe there are some nuances that you can pick up. Look, you could broadcast on YouTube at like 1080, DPI. You could broadcast even higher on, you could upload a video onto YouTube with even higher resolution than that. So I don't know what exactly, what the difference would be, except for maybe the NWA doesn't have a way to produce that high to YouTube. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like,
I suppose one thing, and this is what I was thinking when Pollo brought it up, or Paul, whichever name we want to use. YouTube's always going to have more people watching something.
Yes.
And so there's probably a bigger strain on its resources than CW has for its app. And I'm sure YouTube has more resources, but I'm just saying there's probably a huge strain. So honest question to any of you out there in the chat. Do you feel like there's a large number of people that will discover the NWA on the CW app? Because normally you get an app because there's already something there and you want to see it.
I know you said it's kind of for the audience, but I guess maybe since
you too.
I'm the one that could talk back. Look, ideally, so YouTube is a catch-all, right? Because if I'm looking for the NWA Starrcade 1983, I could go to YouTube and type that in, and I might find some NWA matches from 1983. Maybe I might see some old Jim Crockett Promotions, or maybe some Georgia Championship Wrestling, or some Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, whatever it is. Maybe I'm looking for Adam Pearce matches, So if I type in NWA, maybe I might see some of that stuff. But what the NWA has benefited from being on YouTube is that their matches are right there with those matches. And especially with the algorithm and the fact that they are NWA wrestling and it's right there in the name, they're going to grab people's eyeballs that way. Fundamentally, CW, people aren't looking for NWA matches unless they're typing NWA. They know that when they type NWA in the CW app, they're not going to see Ric Flair. They're not going to see the Four Horsemen. So I think it is a little bit of a different dynamic. But what Poyo said kind of made some sense too, in that when you go and look at the sport offerings that app will now provide, which I know that they have some Big 12 games, football, basketball, some racing, and all of that is dropped in there with the National Wrestling Alliance. Yeah, they might catch a few extra eyeballs, but to me, like, make no mistake about this isn't a move that puts them with more eyeballs. Yes, there will be some new people to discover them because they're on this app. I think this is a move that is going to promise a greater ROI on their wrestling. YouTube doesn't pay very well. YouTube, for the WWE, who has a YouTube channel, they have that YouTube channel because of multiple reasons. Number one, the second largest search engine in the world is the YouTube search engine, with Google being number one. So when you're typing in, when people are looking for stuff, they're often looking through YouTube to find wrestling related stuff. So that's why WWE puts so much content out there. But you know what WWE doesn't do? They don't put full shows up there. There's not a YouTube specific show. And that's because it costs a lot of money to produce a show that you're not going to get a large ROI on. Impact for TNA Wrestling for a while was streaming their content onto YouTube. I think that, making everything available all at once is great for the consumer, but where's the return on investment? At some point, you're not making enough money to make that make sense. Now, so a lot of it was the older stuff. So maybe they feel like they've already got paid through pay-per-view TV and all that. But if they put it on YouTube now, it's just extra cherries on top of the sundae. But, the NWA was relying solely on the revenue generated from YouTube to fund this machine. And it never would have made sense. Like, a program the extent of what Power wasn't something that you and I could do on a shoestring budget. They had professional camera operators, professional directors, professional equipment, professional lighting, and all those professionals don't even include the term professional wrestling. That's a lot of money that you're putting out. Needless to say, they're renting a venue for at least a day, if not more. Having a ring crew, all this stuff, the makeup artists. And I know it sounds trivial, but like, you could easily rationalize that this could cost upwards.
Well, when you got to pay for stuff, it's never trivial.
Yeah, but I mean, when you talk about what they're paying for, it's upwards of $20,000, $10,000, right? I mean, like, that's not unheard of. And so when you have all that and you're getting paid maybe $500 an episode, maybe $100 an episode, that math doesn't last very long, which means that Billy's probably been pulling money out of his pocket to fund this whole thing this entire time. And we
almost bet on it.
We can't say with any certainty of the pay-per-view numbers because they weren't directly leaked by the NWA or by Triller. But when some people said that Sal Wynn only had 235 buys, right? Like, that's, doing the math, that's only a couple $1,000.
And not only were they saying that it had that many buys, but that it was one of their better bought shows. It was, I don't know if they said it was the highest or one of the highest. I do want to make clear, I think the CW move was smart.
Yeah, I do too.
So I don't want to say that it wasn't, but I do, but when you just kind of look at these things, and I'll be honest in another thing. I don't watch anything on CW. I mean, nothing. I don't know what shows are on CW right now. The only time I am ever on our local CW channel is to watch reruns of The Big Bang Theory. And I don't even do that a lot anymore.
By the way,
because I can quote most of them by heart.
I just went to CWTV.com. Like the first thing you see is a rotating banner of different shows, Girlfriends, Inside the NFL. Let's see what else is here. Flash Gordon, The Connors, Party of Five, Heartland, Wild Cards, Family Law. So I mean, like, and then shows that are trending right now. Shows that are trending now: Grimm, Rain, Lost Girl, 90210, the new one, Beauty and the Beast, Sullivan's Crossings, The Rising, recently added, The Wild Cards, I Am MLK Jr., Jumanji, Deadlock, Girlfriends, White Famous, I Am Paul Walker, All the Drama, Party of Five, Rain. So, like, as I'm going through here, you know what I don't see? I haven't seen a single thing for the NWA. But you know that obviously that could change too. They don't premiere their.
Well, yeah, because I'm assuming what you're looking for is what they actually have on. What you're looking at, they're actually saying what's on TV.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I ask is our Kayfabe Suit Pro Wrestling shorts.
Just call him Heebs. That's our pal Heebs.
Oh, Heebs. Okay. Heebs goes, wrestling fans find the wrestling. True, but I'm looking at people who are not necessarily currently wrestling fans and ask, is the app regularly advertised by CW? That's where new eyeballs come from. And the answer is I don't know, because I don't watch CW to know if they regularly talk about their app. I mean, probably. But again, you have to be watching it and you have to have a reason to want to go there to it. And again, most people get apps because they're looking for something specific.
Now my pal Traducus, who maybe the only Mike Traducus and Jeremy are only ever Twitch viewers. Traducus brings up a few points, and I want to get to him because he's hardly ever on. So I want to acknowledge that he's here, and I want to talk about what he said. First of all, he's saying that John McChesney from NWA, formerly of NWA Upstate, NWA New York, where he held both company titles, is going to be challenging EC3 in the next few weeks for the 10 pounds of gold with Revenge Pro Wrestling. He brings up that he wants not only to Revenge Pro Wrestling to join the NWA, but he says it was he's also glad that the NWA is free on the CW and that you don't need an account. He also brought up that Women of Wrestling is still airing on CW currently, and I think it's also available on the app as well. But he had mentioned the NWA should keep the YouTube channel for a revival of the 10 pounds of gold. Now, I think that's wishful thinking for a lot of us, but I'm not going to hold my breath to that. I feel like the NWA at this point is all focused on what's happening now with power on the CW. Now, here would be a great idea if they could send a lackey to literally go and record everything that EC3 is doing and make a 10 pounds of gold series on YouTube. That would make a heck of a lot of sense. I don't know that they have the resources for that. I don't know if they have the desire to even do that, but it would make a lot of sense. It's what they did with Nick Aldis, except for the lackey was also the guy who produced, directed, wrote, and did everything else for the NWA at the time, and Dave Lagana. But Traducus says that was a great infomercial for the NWA. And the last thing that I see Traducus said was, I mean, Women of Wrestling is doing well on the CW. It got them to be the most watched wrestling program, and that's not WWE or AEW. Now, the difference between the two is that although Women of Wrestling, I believe, is on the CW app, and I can actually find that out right now, they, in some markets, do appear on the CW network. In my market, it's not on the CW network. It's on an independent channel. But yeah, I'm looking right now, and yes, WoW is available on the CW app. Going back to 2019, it has the episodes. So yeah, I mean there is content from then that is on the app.
Yeah, we also don't get it on our local CW.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's driving WoW on the CW. I think actually being on the TV side of it. And again, we don't know what's going to happen when NXT releases in September.
I did click. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
I did click on sports from CW TV, and they do have the NWA down at the bottom under the more sports on CW. So it right next to WoW. So it is at least on that primary page.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. And again, I'm not being critical of the decision to go there. And Paul made very clear that they are looking for a way to make it available to other people in other countries.
Yeah, and Sean brings up, well, WoW's past episodes are on YouTube a week later. Again, we don't know the terms of that condition of that deal. We don't know if that was made just for them. We don't know if the NWA is going to have the ability to do the same thing, or if they had to give up more to get more. I mean, none of us were in the locker room. None of us were in the boardroom when these contracts were signed. So I can't tell you. I mean, it makes common sense to me, but at the same time, WoW has been on with the CW app for a while, going back to 2019. The NWA is going on to CW late 23, early 24. Maybe they don't have the same ability to negotiate that deal. What DK was just saying is that there has been a lot of talk, and Paul even brought it up on Tuesday, that the NWA does want to find a way to distribute its content internationally, whether it be region locking YouTube or potentially finding outside distribution to get it to an international audience. And it's sad to say it, but yeah, Canada is considered an international audience. Mexico is an international audience. Scotland, where our pal Fiona lives, is an international audience. Our pal Dodi, who lives in Indonesia, again, an international audience. Even though he doesn't watch it, our pal Lamb in Germany, again, there is some people who would like to see this show internationally. They have to figure out a way to do it. I'm frustrated with the NWA that they didn't have the forethought to think of a way to do that before they announced the deal. I feel like that should have been hand in hand with what they were trying to do with the CW.
Yeah, Paul seemed to suggest that the deal came together actually probably a bit quicker than they were expecting.
Well, we know, truth be told, we know that there was multiple wrestling promotions that were looking for the same exact deal that the NWA got. Okay. And even today, I read somebody post on Facebook the same asinine, just stupid comment that, oh, well, the cocaine spot ruined their deal with CW. No, it had no impact on their deal with CW. They were never going onto the CW channel. The deal with the WWE had been in works for months. Those deals with a company like the WWE don't happen like that. They don't. It takes weeks and months of negotiation. And I could tell you, because I got to see special emails, that there was talk with the WWE going back to September of 23. It didn't just happen overnight. And in that email I saw said, these conversations have been going on for some time. So, no, it wasn't just something that happened by accident or because the because the NWA had a spot that was considered tasteless. No, that's not why. it was only ever going to be for the CW app. Now, maybe that grows and changes later, but knowing what we know about the WWE, they don't really like to share their providers with other wrestling programs. Now, an exception might be made for WOW. Maybe the same exception will be made for the NWA. I can't tell you, but as of right now, I do know CWTV.com is the home of the NWA. The CW app is the home of the NWA right now. And there's nothing else to report. Forget the cocaine spot. With current quality of Billy's booking, Tyrus got his own mukbang channel. Tyrus getting his own mukbang channel on the Food Network seems more possible than some national network bats an eye on NWA. There's some truth to that too. Like, there's been some booking that I think a lot of us would question has been whether that was good or bad. You know, it goes to show you that.
Well, that actually segues into a topic I wanted to talk about tonight.
You know, and I didn't know how long Jaden's been here, but hey, Jaden, what's going on? Hope you haven't been waiting for too long.
Just about 45 minutes. No, just kidding.
That's like shit. Sorry.
No, I apologize. I had to take care of something with school, so I wasn't able to get in as quickly as I'd like to. But yeah, I'm here now.
We're doing the mukbang of wrestling here. We're just eating all the wrestling we could talk about. It's the Mulligan stew. Do you know what?
Oh, I like blackjack. Blackjack Mulligan.
Yeah. Jaden, everybody.
Way to go. So he actually came at the right time because Jay just presented a perfect segue. And that is with, CW and, cocaine spots or whatever, you kind of got to, Paul noted that, guess what? The NWA does have to take in consideration things for, doing things based on having CW, because they're a partner of sorts now. I'm not saying that they're bought in. I'm just saying, everyone's got to stay happy. And so, one of the questions that came up is, of course, at the last taping, which was a CW taping, was...
Sorry. So I haven't seen Willie Bowen in a while, but Doty's going to keep us going on the Tyrus joke. So our topic tonight is how many Mulligan stews can Tyrus eat in an hour?
Have you ever seen Willie Bowen and Doty in at the same place at the same time? Makes you wonder, huh?
Kind of makes you
say. So the last one had the death match.
The ultimate match of death, excuse you.
Yeah, no, death match.
Ultimate match of dumb. What was that?
Yeah, and there is, I don't know if it's still up, but someone did post a clip of it at the end.
Yeah, I watched that.
And I'm not gonna share with you the link or anything or anybody.
The way you said that, Jade. Yeah, I watched it. That's awful.
Because
so was the clip.
When I shared that with you and Jaden, I made a comment. And my comment was, this is everything I hate about pro wrestling. Everything. I mean, you watch this little thing, it's everything I hate about pro wrestling. If they're smart, it will never see light of day on CW, or at least only small bits of it. And so I will now, as it's approaching pill time, let Jaden get on his soapbox and tell us why death matches are bad for wrestling in the NWA.
I know for a fact that other promotions' deathmatch wrestling cost dog buildings and bookings and opportunities that they had nothing at all to do with. I can go back and remember how upset Dr. Zirconium was when he had a bus full of children from the CHOP Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania, which deals with children that are very not well and have a lot of medical issues, and it's a very great charity because they do things to help make sure kids who have cancer and leukemia and other medical issues don't have to pay for taking care of, and sometimes even make sure the parents can stay with the children and not have to worry about working or something like that. Excellent cause. And I remember how he was upset because another promotion just happened to be running the same night, and when the person in charge that was working with him on this looked up wrestling that night and saw that promotion running and decided to not send the kids because he couldn't just look at, what I sent him or what Dr. Zirconian sent him. He had to look up something because he just didn't have it in front of him. And that really upset him because he was going to have an entire bus or two, I believe, of children coming to to come see some event that he was going to do. And I know for a fact that other promotions have done things like that where, again, it's not their own fault. It's just the unfortunate situation on things where something stupid can happen. Something can happen that has nothing at all to do to you. I remember for a long time there was trouble when the Benoit martyrs happened, and how hard it was to deal anything with professional wrestling. And again, it has nothing at all to do with those companies running or anything else. But unfortunately, it has consequences in all-wide, company-wide, promotion-wide, wrestler-wide, and industry-wide. People always say, like, oh, it's great that AEW has running and they can do all this stuff, but it may have hurt the further industry with anybody trying to run as a big promotion on a big television station now. Because if this does not succeed to the way that needs to succeed, if it's not serious on what happens, it could do long-term ramifications. And that's the same thing for the cocaine spot with NWA. That's the same thing with this what's it called? Hardcore match of death, or dumb or stupid or something.
The ultimate match of death.
Yeah, it's the ultimate match of bad decisions, honestly, because again, it can make a big difference in somebody seeing that, and now no wrestling gets involved. Somebody could just randomly be flipping on the CW app looking for, I don't know, Riverdale, and find that and like, oh, this is wrestling. This is what that guy was talking to me about. And then next thing you know, they want nothing to do with it. So that's what the things you have to worry about. Because when you do something, it not just affects you, it affects everybody around you. Yeah. And in this industry right now, anything, people want to have an excuse to look at wrestling in a bad light. And they are given one by everything that's going on, with all the other stuff. And that's what you have to worry about, unfortunately. And people don't care about that. They just care about what their own little niche, their own little promotion, their own little something is. And it's the same thing for wrestlers, too. They don't care. They just care about their own little thing right now. And that's unfortunately a bad thing, because there are places that are... I'll give an example. I know Dr. Zirconian was trying to run the Woodbury Armory that Carluzzo used to run. Not sure exactly what happened with Carluzzo. I heard many rumors, but that armory won't even talk to anybody about having professional wrestling. Amazing, excellent building for wrestling.
Your audio's getting kind of weird.
Can you still guys hear me? I'm sorry, my phone's slipping down, so I think it was blocking the mic.
Yeah, you're good now.
It's an excellent, beautiful building for professional wrestling, and the area probably would love to have something there. But again, now because of something Carluzzo did, nobody will ever run there. That happens with the Woodbury Heights Armory. Wrestling ran there for a while, and something happened with a bunch of promoters who ran there, and now they want nothing to do with wrestling. They won't even talk. And I have friends who I've known for years who I tried to actually talk to and see if they will help. And they are, because they're on the committee, and they said, look, it's nobody will ever run wrestling there in that building again. And that's the consequences people have to realize when they do things.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer.
Did you pick up any of that, DK?
I did. I could hear you guys in the background. So, but yeah, I mean, Jaden points out, it's death matches in my book are never anything you want to say, oh, look, this is even a part of wrestling. Because I don't know what hitting people with thumbtacks and action figures and
this brings up another question from Dodie, and I think we all have to kind of think about this. You know, Matt Cardona, his whole moniker now is the indie deathmatch god, right? Or deathmatch god, whatever it is. Is Matt Cardona a negative for the NWA at this point? Knowing the audience that he draws, knowing the value that his name has, but knowing the propensity for violence, the propensity for death matches. You know, I saw the clips. I've seen things from that death match, and it makes me wonder, like, how that's even going to air on CW. You know, without some highly forms of editing. You know what? I know we're talking about almost 20 years ago now, but Wrestling Society X, when it was on MTV, and a lot of their spots got edited out because they were deemed too violent. You know, the same channel that would show Jackass and all those kids, you know, doing the stupidest things to get hurt, that still show ridiculous, that they even put a warning in the show like, hey, don't try this at home. Don't submit the videos. We're not going to watch them. You know, and then you have the NWA who's appearing on CW in 2024 when everyone is getting canceled for everything, that everything is so dangerous, and they're going to show this match. I don't know, man. What are your thoughts? Is Matt Cardona a net positive or a net negative for the NWA? DK, you go first.
If they continue to do this type of stuff with him, he's a net negative. I will say the Cardona that is now wrestling is not the same Cardona that first came to the NWA when he was kind of at his peak and hot. I think he still makes plenty of money going around the independent stuff like that. But I don't think he has the same value that he once had. I don't hear him talk about nearly as much as I used to. So, but if you're going to, anyone who's bringing you garbage to put on, then, you know, let's not do it. And the whole, you know, Deathmatch King, I kind of was under the impression that was supposed to be kind of like ironic.
That's what I thought it was until he kept doing it.
And then it was like, I kind of had the feeling I think that's the way it may have started, but now it's like they're actually doing all this crap. It's like, no, I personally would go with he's at this moment a net negative. Jaden?
I hate to agree, but I kind of agree. Here's the thing. Cardona doesn't need to do any of it. I never thought he did. Maybe I'm wrong, but and a lot of people don't agree with me. I've always thought he was pretty talented. I always thought there was something to him, that he could have done anything he wanted. And anything he wanted to do into professional wrestling. And he could have been a world champion in the NWA without some of the ultra-violent stuff. Here's another thing, too. I've never thought, and maybe I'm wrong, that trying to appeal to a niche audience when you have mainstream audience, both experience and potential, is great for your career. Now, he obviously, maybe I'm wrong because he's making money. He's making a lot of money doing his thing, but I think he could have done it without it. I just think he's looking for the easier way. But that's, I think, the NWA's problem is they're going for the niche audience instead of going for the wider audience. There's a lot of people who would love to like wrestling. There's a lot of people who used to like wrestling, and there's a lot of people that still do like wrestling but not liking what they're currently getting. They're suffering through it because they're just, that's the only wrestling they're getting, but they'd rather have something else. I believe that audience is much, much larger than the smart mark audience. I've worked for, and I've seen Dog itself run events for people that have no idea AEW, Impact, GCW, MLW, anything but the WWE exist. And even then, they want to like wrestling, but they're not big into following it constantly. If somebody can capitalize constantly on that crowd and get them to be a following, they could be a major factor, but nobody's trying that. They're all trying for smaller pieces of the pie, bigger pieces of smaller pie. And I think that's the problem, especially right now with Cardona.
I will say one thing in support of Cardona, and that is that I don't know that this is him, because EC3 was in a match with Tyrus with a bull rope. EC3 was in a match with Latimer that was no disqualification, had some other strange, long name. So is Cardona the problem, or is EC3 the problem, or is Billy the problem? I mean, ultimately the buck stops with Billy, but who's the person that's actually wanting to put on these styles of matches?
If Cardona's not, he's big enough to say no. I think at this point right now, EC3 is big enough to say no. So while I think I believe it's Billy, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe it's Billy who's wanting to do all this stuff. But I really 1,000,000,000% believe that if these guys wanted to do something about it, they could just say, no, we're not doing that.
So my 2 cents is this, right? Like, I don't think Billy Corgan is the one saying, hey, what'd be great is if you guys went out there and did a death match. I think what happens is EC3 and Cardona start talking and say, hey, this match has to be important. We have to make this match very, very important because this is going to be kicking off my reign as world champion on the CW, in the CW universe. What do you think? Let me bounce some ideas off you. What if we did this death match and we'll push the envelope as far as we can? And Cardona says, well, yeah, man, that sounds good to me. It's what I've been doing a lot of anyways. And then they both go to Billy and say, all right, here's our idea, Billy. This is what we're going to pitch to you. We know that this world title match is important. We need to get people to look at this. We need people who don't normally watch the NWA to watch this match. So, what's the best way to do? Well, there's that GCW crowd who seems to sell out every single GCW show. Why don't we put a match on that will cater to that fan base and see if we can bring a few of them over based on the fact that it's EC3, former NXT world champion, former hardcore champion, or WWE 24/7 champion, in his reign that he had with WWE and Impact. And they're using Matt Cardona, who's a former WWE Intercontinental champion and, widely recognized as a top name on the independent circuit. And we'll have this big match with this death match, stipulation for the grandest prize in pro wrestling. And, the NWA fans are going to watch it because they love that title. And maybe we could steal some Game Changer Wrestling fans. Maybe we could steal some XPW fans by putting out some of the hardcore wrestling stuff. I mean, that's my idea. I don't know if I'm right. Again, I'm not in those meetings either, but, I don't necessarily think it's Cardona coming to the NWA saying, okay, guys, what I want is for you to put spikes in my forehead and make me bleed my own blood. I don't think that's what's happening.
Well, whoever is responsible for it, be it Billy, Cardona, or EC3, they're all having to agree to it.
Right.
And I do think, like, the argument you're making is probably what they're saying to themselves. But here's my problem with it. That's not the show that you're going to get on CW. So you're not going to lure those fans in with one match and then keep them by, putting on a quote unquote more traditional style of wrestling, even if it's a more modern traditional, style of wrestling. So GCW fans, that's what they're going to watch. ECW fans, that's what they're going to watch. But if you can make money in that small niche, well, good for you. Do they make money? I don't know. Somebody will tell me yes, but people used to tell me ROH made money. People
just didn't make enough money. That was a problem.
Yeah, people used to tell me that Quackenbush made money.
Well,
people used to tell me, well, yes, we know that. We know 99% of wrestling promotions don't make money, but this one promotion here, it does, and almost 100 times out of 100, no, it really doesn't.
There's also between making money and making, being profitable.
Right.
And
as you said, wasn't enough.
Our pal Traducus brings up a few points with regards to Game Changer Wrestling. He did point out that when Kerry was World Junior Heavyweight Champion, that he did showcase the title in his appearances at Game Changer Wrestling. I think he even had one title defense in GCW. Also says that the death matches in GCW are more than just people bleeding all over each other. They're good matches even without the stipulation. I'll be honest, Traducus, I've never watched a Game Changer Wrestling show. I may actually go to one when they come to Los Angeles, where they're going to have Matt Cardona versus Nick Nemeth. I might actually make the trip to a Game Changer to see that one. But I've always been turned off by a product that features deathmatch wrestling. I've went to one XPW show in the entire time of their existence. Even when I know that Camille was going to be on that show, that Tom was going to be on that show, that Mecha Wolf was going to be on that show, because I don't have a desire to watch deathmatch wrestling. That is absolutely not my cup of tea, for sure. And I don't have problems with people who do enjoy it, but it's never been for me. I've never financially supported deathmatch wrestling outside of one XPW show, and the night I went, some guy got thrown off of a freaking building. So. And then Traducus says they also limit the amount of death matches in Game Changer, and don't get me wrong, death matches are their bread and butter, but they have more to offer, and I think that's why initially
interesting. That's interesting. He goes, they have more to offer. It's good without the stipulation. Well, if it's good without stipulation, then why the fuck do you need it? And then, they have more to offer. That's not the way they're presented out there. I mean, they don't present as, hey, we have really good wrestling and a couple of death matches. They're presented as a death match type. And death match means something specific. It's not just a no disqualification match. Death match means doing stupid, idiotic things that people can get hurt. Really hurt for a really long time. So, I mean, great. They have good matches. I don't give a shit. If they're putting on a death match, I don't want to have anything to do with them.
If there is a person who donates to charity, buys every Girl Scout cookie within 1,000,000 miles for every Girl Scout troop to make sure they're taken care of, donates to the local hospital, cleans up the neighbor's yard who's older because she's too old to do it, but also throws puppies in wood chippers.
Jeez.
That one thing makes everything else they do not important to me and to a lot of people. Jeffrey Epstein could have been a great person besides all the other stuff that he did. If you ignore that, he might have been a great person. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know him. Don't care to know him.
What kind of
But-
puppies?
But yeah, it's at that point.
Yours, Jay.
Well, did they deserve it? Were they barking?
Maybe.
No, that's not true. You know, that's not something you should.
Well, I mean, obviously they would never deserve it, and that's obvious. And
I'm being facetious. Come on, guys.
Oh, we know.
You don't joke about puppies unless you're Jerry Lawler.
I thought it was you don't F around with cats. That's the one.
Well, they'd F around with you if they had the chance.
They'll do it again too. Hey, let's change the subject a little bit because obviously we could beat this horse to death if we want to. Something did happen this week, and I think we should kind of celebrate it for a moment. We saw our very own Maddie, now known as Wren, not the best picture, but I took it. I think it's funny, so that's what the one I'm using. We saw Wren make her in-ring debut for NXT. Of course, we knew her as Maddie. Those of you who knew her in Mission Pro knew her as Maddie Renkowski. Obviously, the name Wren is paying homage to the first name in wrestling. Is this more to come? Are we going to see more and more WWE signings coming out of the NWA? Do we think, just also, not that it's the same, but last night we know that Camille was at the AEW tapings in South Carolina. Are we going to start seeing more and more NWA talents who are not signed get picked up by the bigger, now 3 companies, the WWE, AEW, and TNA Wrestling? Is this something we're going to see more of?
It feels weird calling TNA a bigger company, but
they just signed Nick Nemeth, and I feel like they are on an upward trajectory. That they made it clear that they're going to be spending some money on talent. And
why haven't they signed my boy Hammerstone yet?
That might be in the works. That might be what's happening next. But look, we know that they were in on CM Punk. That's been reported by both sides, and that the numbers were like 7-figure. We know that they offered Will Ospreay a 7-figure deal. I don't know what Nick Nemeth got offered, but obviously he signed, and he'll be working with them. And they had Trinity, one of the Usos' wives, excuse me. I don't know. Do we think we're going to see more? Like there's a lot of talent now who say that they're under contract. Of course, we heard Joe Alonzo for months, for a year, manifested that he would sign. Kerry Morton just recently said that he's signed till 2025. We know that Missa Kate was signed. We know that one of the country gentlemen wasn't signed and left. Is this a sign of things to come?
For Impact or just the signing with the NWA? I think
talent leaving the NWA.
Oh yeah, I think talent's going to be leaving the NWA. I think the NWA has always been, as much as Billy would like to think otherwise, it's always been a chance to get noticed so you could get to a bigger place.
I mean,
so,
there will always be people who will get noticed and get picked up by one of the other promotions over time. That's not a bad thing. Shoot, talent goes back and forth between the top 2. So, it's going to happen. But as I always say, you can't sign everybody.
No.
Don't tell Tony Khan that.
He's trying to.
He tries, but
his roster of wrestlers is much akin to a kid playing Pokemon. He's gonna try to catch them all, and you have to kind of appreciate that. But then, one of the signings in AEW right now, and I think it's got to be Switchblade Jay White, who's got to be kicking himself because there were rumors that he had offers from the WWE. He chose AEW instead, and when he left New Japan Pro Wrestling, he was one of their top draws. He was one of their stars. He was a former IWGP world champion. And I think maybe he even had visions of, wrestling against Kenny Omega or the top stars of AEW and perhaps winning the world's heavyweight championship. Not only did they completely and utterly neuter him in that match with MJF at the pay-per-view a couple months ago, but now he's been reduced to teaming with Billy Gunn's boys, and they're now the Ring of Honor Trios champion, the Ring of Honor 6-man champions. And I got to think, wow, what a fall from grace. If Switchblade would have been in Impact TNA Wrestling right now, he would probably be wrestling for the championship. If he was in WWE, at the very least, he'd probably be NXT World Champion. But he signed with AEW, and he's on the bottom, one of the most unnecessary championships on the entire program, the Ring of Honor 6-man tag.
It could be worse. It could be the Continental Champion.
Continental's on TV every week. How often are there ROH champions on TV?
Well, only because he holds 2 other titles. Anyway, yeah, just but even with AEW, we've known people who signed with AEW, and it turns out it's actually a small contract for not much money that gives them about 6 months to see if they're any good or not, and and they're thrown to the dogs afterwards. So I think it's just one of those things. There'll always be, and look, we wouldn't want all the same talent.
No.
I mean, imagine, we may want Eli Drake.
Oh, yeah.
But imagine if everybody who was on the first taping of Power was still there. And, it's like,
that would be amazing.
Oh, would it? I mean, we were ready for Molina to go. And
okay, but think of it this way. If we had Power today that had LA Knight on the program, Nick Aldis on the program, Royce.
We were ready for Nick Aldis to go.
Well, there were points in time. Okay, so just as it pertains to Nick Aldis, there was a point in time when he was the bee's knees. I can admit it. Like, his first run as world champion, I think will go down as one of the greatest runs as NWA World Champion, on par with some of the legends of yesteryear. You cannot deny it. His second run as world champion was where it kind of went all apart. But if we could have that first Nick Aldis back on Power, I would take that. If we could have LA Knight right now back on Power, I would take that. If you give me Thunder Rosa, I would take her. If you give me Eddie Kingston, I would take him. And yeah, some, things would look a little bit different. Could you imagine a feud with EC3, putting him in the same ring with LA Knight for the 10 pounds of gold?
Imagine if we still had the Rock and Roll Express.
Okay, not everybody needs to still be there, but don't show me superstars and tell me that they don't fit.
Look, you're picking superstars, but I said everybody. Imagine if we had everybody from the first thing, and they're all still there. God, we'd be so sick of some of them, and we would probably be sick of some of the stars. Even, because really, how much is Nick Aldis going to do that he's not the world champion? That's why he was so upset.
But imagine adding Royce Isaacs into that TV title picture. Imagine having LA Knight in your World Heavyweight Championship picture. Imagine having James Storm back feuding with, Silas Mason. I think there would have been a lot of good stuff.
Imagine Royce Isaacs being in the television picture for 5 years or whatever.
Well, I'm not saying people have to stick where they're at, but Matthew Underwood says Mr. Anderson, Colt Cabana, Jimmy Storm, Royce Isaacs, Eddie Kingston, Aaron Stevens, Ricky Morton.
And look, what I'm talking about here is, imagine these people never left. Imagine they never went anywhere. So we're not getting LA Knight. We're not we're not getting, Royce Isaacs coming in and out. Imagine if the show was just these same guys that with a couple of new people here and a couple of new people there. You get sick of them. You get tired. You want change. You want turnover. You want development. We don't want Adam Pearce spent about 5 years as the dominant champion. He had a good run. It was time to move on. Nick Aldis had his 3 years as champion. Okay, time to move on. And sometimes it's just, I think even with, WWE, you can look at somebody like Miz, and he's somebody that's probably going to have a job for life and everything like that. But even they don't know what to do with him half the time. And they turn him face, and then they turn him heel again, and then they turn him face again. And
well, that's character development.
That's desperation. When somebody's there, you just have to do something constantly with them. Otherwise, they just get stale, and they already are stale. People, how can you miss somebody if they won't go away? I'll steal that line.
Yeah, and it was, but I'm talking about with Miz. He's the same character. Absolutely nothing about him changes, even when he's facing heel. It's just okay.
Okay, but all right, sure. Everything you said is firm, but you're not going to convince me that the NWA wouldn't be better right now without Eli Drake in it. And I'm not saying LA Knight. I would take Eli Drake where he was leveraged on the roster in 2019. I would take that Eli Drake right now, and the show would be better because of it.
And I would agree with you. But again, I'm not talking about just one person.
Okay, fair enough. As long as we agree on that, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there are people I would still like to have, but there are people who I'm glad are gone.
Because Traducus keeps tempting fate here with talking about Ray Gonzalez, and we're kind of finished up on this topic anyways. What are your thoughts on Ray Gonzalez? I know I'm not the only one that thinks that his lore should be forgotten. His legacy should be removed. Nobody recognized him as world champion until Bruce Tharp accidentally included him on a list of former world champions.
Oh, by the way, that same list that had him also excluded the last title change between Ric Flair and Harley Race, which was never supposed to be a title change. That was idiot people later in life doing things that they didn't know about, because that title change was supposed to have been wiped out at the time because Ric Flair never won the title back. He was granted the title back when they said that Harley Race didn't legitimately win it. And so it's just knock off the Ray Gonzalez thing. He was never champion. Just deal with it.
Jaden, you have your 2 cents.
I honestly don't care.
Fair enough. I'll go.
Who was the guy that was won it in the Dominican Republic, and then they never actually acknowledged it?
I think that's who Ray Gonzalez is, isn't it?
No, it was
Flair. Victor something?
Yeah, I always want to call him Victor Kionin. I know that's not it because that's the promoter. But yeah. Victor Jovica or something like that.
Jack Verano. See, Traducus knows all the obscure champions that were never legitimately recognized by the NWA. Traducus has the list.
That was the guns that, there were like gunshots in the audience, and Ric Flair literally pulled the guy on top of him.
Did he pull the guy on top of him to give him the belt, or he pulled the guy in him hoping he gets shot instead of him?
I think so.
The thing that I have against it is because I think it's a slippery slope when you rewrite history. Famously, you guys remember Dale Gagner, who was the illegitimate son of Wren. At least that's what he painted himself out to be. He copyrighted AWA Superstars and tried to tell the world that Hulk Hogan was a former AWA world champion. No, he wasn't. That's bullshit. Stop it. You're trying to confuse the history. The winners of the wars write the story, but that story was not written. We can't go back and change it because somebody wants to. The same people who say that Kurt Angle's a former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion because he held the 10 pounds of gold, they deliberately had that press conference before the pay-per-view started to withdraw the recognition that Christian Cage was the last TNA version of the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. We can't rewrite history to include Kurt Angle. I love Kurt Angle as much as the next guy. I thought he was a fantastic wrestler. Would have loved to see him as the NWA World Champion. But the fact of the matter is he wasn't. You can't call somebody a world champion because they held the belt. I saw a picture of Hulk Hogan holding the 10 pounds of gold. You know who was never world's heavyweight champion in the NWA? Hulk Hogan. We can't go rewriting the history. If we could, we'd put someone like Samoa Joe as world's heavyweight champion, but it never happened. So we can't just pick and choose what history we're going to acknowledge.
I mean,
go ahead.
How many territories did Ric Flair lose the title on a dusty finish?
Yeah.
And sometimes they didn't even know until the next television that the guy wasn't champion. But
yeah,
that's one of the most famous dusty, finishes was when Dusty won the title from Ric Flair at Starrcade 85, I think it was, or something. Not 85. Yeah, maybe it was 85. And, they didn't tell anybody. Everybody who left that night thought that Dusty was the champion. And they didn't say anything until the next show. And it's like, nope. So, yeah, it's just.
In the chat, Paladin brings up the fact that a lot of the AEW talent that used to work for the NWA don't anymore. And they never really worked with the NWA. Yeah, they still took independent bookings. But as we learned later, it sounds like all those bookings were still paid for by Tony Khan and AEW, and that's why they don't really have a relationship to this day. And it's like that's one of those weird things that I don't know why, as a promoter, you would expect the company who's loaning you talent to pay for that talent, but whatever.
Well, that's not an uncommon practice. I brought that up at the time. Well, that's what actually ruined Pro Wrestling USA.
That's what ruined Primetime Live, the relationship with the NWA and United Wrestling Network.
It's who's paying for what and when and where and why, and no one really seems to know, do they? But
Luthez is demanding that he be featured as a former 10 pounds of gold champion. And then Matthew Underwood says, "Where's the 10 pounds of gold series? Why has Lightning One gone away from that?" The only thing that I could say to that is we know that the 10 pounds of gold series was the brainchild of David Lagana, period. He's the one that had the concept. I know that Nick Aldis will take as much credit for that as he can, but that was a Dave Lagana idea. It was executed by Dave Lagana, and in later versions of the 10 pounds of gold series that Aldis was producing with Sam Shaw and those who were involved with it, you notice that it was never quite the same look and feel as what they had before. It was obvious to me. It was never as organic as the original 10 pounds of gold series. Could they do it again? Sure, they could. But it's, again, we talked about this earlier in the show. Where is the NWA making its money right now? I would suggest that it's making the majority of its money from its live events, selling tickets, and I would imagine it's merchandise because it wasn't on YouTube. We know that. It wasn't via pay-per-view. We kind of think that. So putting effort into a project on YouTube, which is not going to pay what it's costing to produce, it might not be the best idea. Not the best way to spend its money.
Let's also remember that that's when they had nothing else to film, and I hate to say it like this, but nothing else to do for content.
Yeah, they were they basically, and this is, I don't mean for it to sound as negative as it is, but they were just filming stuff that was happening at Dave Marquez Promotions. They were going into Port Hueneme. They were filming, the showdown between Tim Storm and Nick Aldis. They were filming the Josephus stuff. They had the It was nothing. They didn't have a show yet. They didn't have it wasn't a promotion yet. It was a title. It was a traveling champion and the story about that traveling champion. It wasn't until later when Power came up that you don't really, those stories should still be told on Power. You could still do the whole 10 pounds of gold series on Power, but they don't. Their focus is now telling the story of a wrestling promotion, not one particular champion. I wish they would bring back Power. I wish it'd be available for everyone to watch on YouTube. But again, does that make fiscal sense to them? And the answer is probably not. When Dave Lagana was working for the NWA, he wore many hats. So for him to be on the road with the champion and filming everything and then editing everything and then uploading everything, you're talking about the job of 3 or 4 different people. If they were to do it now, they can't part with Billy Trask. He's the one that's producing the show. He's directing the show. So, who would be that person to film, edit, and make that story with the world champion? It's something that if EC3 could pull off, it'd be great, but I just don't see that happening. Matthew Underwood said it'd be great on CW. I mean, it would be great anywhere. I just think the resources right now are all towards putting Power on.
But they don't need it for CW.
Right.
I mean, CW is not going to pay them a penny more for 5-10 minute video clips touting the world championship. And so, again, let's remember this business is about making money.
Yeah. It's cool to have a great big library and all these fantastical matches, but at the end of the day, if they don't make dollars, then it doesn't make sense. That's the bottom line of the business. In any business, if you're not making money, it's not a wise investment. For Billy Corgan, he spent 5 years to build the brand to where it is right now. And as far as I can tell, I'm no mathematician here. And again, I don't know the numbers specifically, but show me where they're making a ton of money, where Billy's become profitable. We could say that he has said, "Oh, I'm happy with what we got on this pay-per-view. We're happy with the numbers that we got." Being happy and being profitable are two different things. If you're happy forking out money for the show, for the Power, for the pay-per-views and everything else, and not having a gate that covers it, then okay. You could still be happy with the numbers. Oh, I only spent $100,000 this year instead of $200,000 that I spent last year. You know what I mean? Like there's no direct correlation. We don't know. And I feel like you don't go to the CW and limit your exposure because again, there's more people watching YouTube than there is watching CW. There's less barrier of entry to get to YouTube than there is to CW. You don't go unless there's an incentive. I think it's a financial one.
Right. And you don't take your things down from other places unless there's
right.
I mean, we go, oh, well, Wow's still on YouTube and their show's a week later. My guess is they probably don't have the same money deal. And, everybody's saying, oh, well, they need to bring back 10 pounds of gold. Why? What, how much money is it going to make?
Now, if they could get CW to commit to X amount of dollars for advertising, and then in turn they use those funds to create the 10 pounds of gold series, then now you're onto something, right? Because each one of the 10 pounds of gold series leads up to a signature live event, right? To encourage more people to go to the app to watch. Now you're onto something. But as far as I could read the tea leaves, that's not a conversation the NWA's had or is willing to have at the moment.
And and Paul pointed out on Tuesday, they don't have a large staff.
No, there's literally 6 or 7 people in the office,
and and so they don't have a large staff. I don't know how many are full time, because Paul obviously has other projects he works on.
Paul is very busy. Paul went down the schedule and yeah, no, it's crazy.
Yeah, and so Paul probably puts in full-time hours, but it's not his full-time job, as the old saying goes.
Sure.
And you know, I know Joe Galley said when he left San Antonio, you know, his job in San Antonio, he said he was going full time. But I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you how many people are out there making, you know, making a living by working at the NWA.
Well, so we could say this, and I don't think I'm talking out of line because Gary frequently mentions that he has another job. But Gary works a full-time job on top of all of his responsibilities for the NWA, you know, and I'm sure if he could quit working his full-time job and survive just on the NWA, he probably would.
Right. And that's not a criticism of NWA.
Correct. Absolutely.
NWA does not exist to give people jobs and to pay them money.
Well, and keep in mind too, like when David Lagana said this, we all kind of scratched our head and like, what are you talking about? But it really is true. When they took over 5 years ago, I guess 6 years ago now, the first thing he said is like it's a 70-year-old company that's a startup. And that's how they're still operating, as like a startup company. You know, Billy does not have the financial flexibility to bring in infrastructure. They're building it as they go. You know, they don't, you know, they're pulling parts in when they need them. It's interesting as being a business owner myself, like, you know, I'm a small business. I'm small potatoes, guys. I'm not Billy Corgan. I don't have Billy Corgan money, but being able to do what he does, like, you know, he's losing money on this brand. He's losing money on the NWA. The fact that he keeps pushing it forward just means that he's committed to his vision of what pro wrestling should be. Do we want to go to a different direction? What do you want to talk about, Jaden?
Honestly, right now, you know, I'm so burnt out with the NWA. I'm probably not a good example of what we should talk about. I'm not a fan right now of anything that you're doing at all, and I really just honestly gave up caring.
But what about your basic? What are your basic thoughts on though, like what we were talking about, and you know, does it actually make sense to do 10 pounds of gold if there's not really any money that's going to be earned off of doing it?
Yes, if it could be a loss leader. If they can put a really good, like the best they've ever done, 10 pounds of gold on YouTube and shared it on everywhere and got it on the CW app and got it on anywhere that they could put it, and on their website, on the Twitter, on the Instagram, everywhere they could put it to really promote this upcoming pay-per-view or show. See, HBO used to do it with their big boxing events, and they were some of the best TV that HBO ever produced. It's kind of the forerunner to what the 10 pounds of gold was, just done in a bajillion ways better with more money and more cameras and more crew and more production. But it was amazing, and it was really done well to promote their boxing events back when they could still make money off of their boxing events, whether it was the big pay-per-views or the big card they had on HBO that time. If done like that, then yes, it could be something potentially beneficial, because then it creates interest, it creates stars, it creates buys on the pay-per-view. I don't think the NWA has that capability right now, because it's real to do something like that. It really creates somebody special. You have to have somebody with a real creative vision. If there's anybody right now that I think the NWA should go after, is that Kevin Sullivan guy that just got out of AEW, the guy who was their television guy until they hired the WWE guy. He can put on a 10 pounds of gold. Is really amazing and make it worth something where it can make you almost excited for the company again. You know, you could put a lot of paint, and you could have somebody who's able to sell chicken feces and telling you it's chicken salad, you know, and that's kind of what he can do. If somebody like that can do it, then yes, I do believe it's something that it would be beneficial for him, because it's cost them money now, but could make them money in the future. It's kind of like an infomercial, a television commercial. And in reality, if they're going to do the 10 pounds of gold, that's what it should be. It should be a commercial. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I get what you're saying, but I mean, I don't know, not in the business, but to me, it seems like a lot of money for the possibility. And, you know, let's face it, until they start putting out a good product, does it really matter? I do want to respond to something from Mandy. Mandy goes, I became a fan of the NWA because 10 Pounds of Gold series. A lot of fans did. A lot of us enjoyed it. It's part of NWA history. What's the harm of having it available as an archive? I don't know if there's any harm in having it available as an archive. I don't know all the business things behind stuff. So I don't know what right. I can't hear you, Jay, if you're talking.
I don't want to forget to point out our good friend of the show, Will Martin, who says wrestling promotions rely on promotion, and the 10 Pounds of Gold was good promotion for the pay-per-views. You know, I tend to agree with that without having the metric information to back that up. And again, if this is, in my opinion, Will, and I said that, I don't know, maybe if you heard it or not, I think if there's a way that you could get CW to pay for that as part of their promotion for the product, again, that would be a huge beneficial way to promote those signature live events. I don't know that you need it for every single TV taping or every single title defense like the initial 10 Pounds of Gold was for the NWA. But if you could lead it up to those signature live events where you're gaining people to go watch the CW app, I mean, I think there's a case to be made where the NWA at some point could say, like, hey, in helping to promote this event, instead of buying billboards, instead of, you know, paying for commercials, you know, if we could do this series on YouTube, I feel like that would build up to the show. And again, you know, what do I know? But I think that would be a good idea. Plus, it's a great way to create content that down the road will always be a part of that William Patrick Corgan library.
Well, okay, I want to back up because I never finished with what was going on with Mandy. And so she said, you know, what's the harm in having it available as an archive? And I don't know that there's any harm in having it available as an archive. I don't know what the business dealings were for that. And I mean, like, the reasons it was originally taken off of YouTube was because their deal with Fight basically made them exclusive. And so I don't know what their deal is with CW. And so I don't know if everything is going to stay on YouTube that's currently there. They're going to take things down. I don't know if Dave Lagana has a claim to it, and they don't want to.
That's just what I was going to suggest is, do we know that it was a fight? The reason that came down was because of Fight, or was it because that Dave Lagana was the person who had the right to the video? Maybe it was a Dave Lagana thing.
Well, the reason given through sources, so, you know, get your salt and take a pinch of it. The reason given through sources was that they had to take everything down from YouTube, or actually hide it is what they did, because their agreement with Fight was exclusive. Now, they're no longer on Fight. Does that mean stuff will start showing up on YouTube that used to be on Fight? I don't know. Probably not. So then the next question is, what's their deal with CW? Does CW, CW have an exclusive right to them, at least in this country? And so I don't know.
Well, and I think these are answers that we'll never, these are questions to answers we'll never get, because
we'll get it by whether things happen or not. You know, that's kind of the thing. No one's ever going to come out and say our agreement with CW has exclusiveness and we can't put anything anywhere. But if they don't put anything anywhere, you'll kind of start figuring out after a while. And so, and then the next thing, with Will Martin talking about promotion, 10 Pounds of Gold for promoting pay-per-views and everything like that. Again, sure, it was good for that when there wasn't a show. But once the show starts, then maybe there's a 10 Pounds of Gold segment or something similar to it in the show. So, but I don't know that you need a separate series for it. And so, to answer Mandy's questions, I have no idea why it can't be in an archive somewhere. Maybe it can, or maybe the videos are actually owned by Dave Lagana, or maybe because of exclusive deals, they're just not allowed to put them anywhere. And, that's life. I mean, that's business. So,
I have to ask James Bell, what are you talking about, brother? No way in the world would I put on that tarnished treasure. He trashed a talent that was in no way involved in that ego's issue. If I was a talent in WWE, I'd never trust he wouldn't churn on me someday.
what?
I don't know. Have any idea what you're talking about, James? You got to explain to me what you're talking about, brother. I'm waiting on James's response, and I don't know what you're talking about, bro. Are you talking about Dave Lagana? He has nothing to do with wrestling at this point.
Aldis trash gags.
Oh, well, sure.
I trash gags every time he's on.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, there is something to that, but you can't. The NWA is synonymous with Nick Aldis, whether they want to be or not. And for the better part of like 3 or 4 years, he was the face of the NWA. And trashing gags or even trashing the company on his way out, which I feel was tasteless and tacky, would not stop me from acknowledging what he did for the brand. And, there wouldn't be a Gags the Gimp if there wasn't a Nick Aldis. And that's not to say that, Gags wouldn't have found work somewhere. I just feel like the base that you had for Power was built on the back of everything that Nick Aldis did leading up to it. And I'm no Nick Aldis fan. You guys know that. I make it very clear that I think Nick Aldis is not a very nice person. You can't take away what he did for the NWA, period. Like, he is the NWA. As much as it pains me to say it at times, he will go down as this era's greatest champion, unless somehow, some way EC3 is able to recreate all those magical moments that Nick Aldis had. Nick Aldis defended the 10 pounds of gold at one of the most viewed pay-per-views that was not produced by the WWE in this country. And Nick Aldis defended the 10 pounds of gold in China. Nick Aldis literally took the belt in his first 8 months to China, Australia, the UK. I mean, and it wasn't against just like ham and eggers either. Like, he had some real legitimate competition in some of those. And they should have done more with the 10 pounds of gold, to be honest. I mean, he wrestled against Lance Hoyt, and they didn't even do a 10 pounds of gold about that. I feel like they really missed the bus with a lot of things during that time frame. But as bad as it was, I would still say that Aldis did too much for the company for it ever to be forgotten. And then Mandy, going back to the 10 pounds of gold, says, it's just frustrating to me. Besides it being a very good series, it also gestures the great talent of Josephus. He was a friend of mine, and it makes me sad new fans can't see his work. And I'll be the first one to say, Mandy, I know that DKM and Jaden aren't the hugest Josephus fans, but I feel like they would even acknowledge that it's a bummer that his fans can't go back and see what he did for the NWA in those times. Is that fair? Can I say that, Jaden? Am I stepping on toes when I say that?
I guess if it's his fans, that's okay. I mean, his mother, his father, his third cousin.
Don't insult Mandy. She's right here in the chat.
But even Mandy, if they like it and that's something they can see, I mean, honestly, to give an example, I'm mad I can't see Exo Squad. I thought that was a great cartoon. So, if you want to watch something and you can't, it's a shame that you can't. I wish you guys could watch all those old NWA pay-per-views that were taking off Fight you guys can't watch now.
Oh, gosh. That's another bag of worms, isn't it?
No habla inglés.
Avoid the boogeyman.
Was he gonna eat some worms?
Yeah, a whole bag of them.
No. 10 pounds of gold is the best. Hold on. You got to get up there. 10 pounds of gold it's their best advertisement for the promotion. It was when that's all there was. Again, I think once the show came, it's the best advertisement for for the promotion.
It'd be good advertising, having a good product.
That would be the best form of advertising, word of mouth.
Grassroots still works,
Matthew Underwood says Kyle and Joe are probably the two full-timers. Yeah, and I think, Matthew, I think there's more than just those two who are working full-time for the NWA. Obviously, again, it's a privately held company. Like, there's no flow chart. There's no organizational chart. We don't know who's really working there, but we know Pat Kenny is very much behind the scenes. Of course, this is Billy's baby. I'm sure he's putting a lot of work into it. I know there's people involved with production that are involved with it. So, who's working full-time for the NWA? Man, I don't know what that office looks like, but it would be a safe bet that Kyle and Joe are definitely part of it, but I don't think they're the only ones. Traducus vouching for EC3's intelligence. EC3 is honestly a smart person, and I was rooting for Control Your Narrative. Like, it was executed poorly, but I loved how it was shot, and it made me wish another Lucha Underground-esque show came out. Love wrestling in 24 frames per second. I don't know much about frames per second. I felt Lucha Underground had a perfectly good place in wrestling. I don't think that either Jaden or DKM enjoyed it. I actually went to a few of the Lucha Underground tapings, and although I didn't watch it consistently on television, I thought it was a fun time for wrestling. And you could see that those talents were at least appreciated by the other two because they all ended up being signed elsewhere. A lot of them are in AEW right now.
I didn't hate Lucha Underground, and I didn't hate the Wrestle Society X either. I just hated, when they started doing the sports entertainment shit, but because I really hate sports entertainment.
When we look at Lucha Underground, I feel like the stories that they told it was done in such a way that I felt like it opened the door to people who wouldn't traditionally be, WWE fans. It was storytelling. It was sports entertainment, but it wasn't the way WWE produced it. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like it was
a bad soap opera. That's what it was.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. It was a bad telenovela.
Luther says it was an abomination. Fair enough. Look, I know it wasn't for everyone, and it's not necessarily, it wasn't like I said, I didn't go to every single one of them, but I did go to two of the tapings. I thought that there was a lot of great talent involved. Some of those talents I kind of wish would have ended up in the NWA, like Emil Muertes, like not necessarily under that gimmick, but Mil Muertes I think would have been a lot of fun in the early NWA. What was that girl's name that used to walk around with Mil Muertes? Jaden, come on.
Is that the 2,000-year-old witch one, or?
Yeah, the one that would lick you before he'd kill you.
I don't know.
Come on, man. Dodie says, remember that Dario Cueto is the best boss ever. Matazana for the NWA. I think Matazana is working for New Japan Pro Wrestling at this point. 24 frames per second is the frame rate for movies, while most wrestling is shot at a higher frame rate, like sports and soap operas. Lucha Underground was a way to get people who didn't watch wrestling into wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty accurate.
I never like that argument that when you're presenting something that really isn't what wrestling is in a standard sense, go, oh, well, this is a way to get somebody who isn't into wrestling into wrestling. No, it's a way to get them into whatever Lucha Underground is, which is something that resembled wrestling but wasn't. And so I never buy that argument. And I think one of the best things I have to back up that is the fact that those things don't really work and they don't really last. And so
you're once again going into a niche audience, which is not sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, you're dividing that pie so small, and you're getting the thing that it doesn't make sense to me. Of course, not much wrestling, and then also, look, WWE is the king of sports entertainment, and you're not going to do sports entertainment better than WWE does sports entertainment. I'm not the fan of sports entertainment in particular. May like some things here or there. They may put on a good match here or there, or anything Gunther's in. But so, if you want to do sports entertainment, you're always just going to be a little lightweight thing, because you're never going to do, unless you got, Shan Khan's money. I've still never seen anybody actually try to compete with a different product on a large scale level. Yeah, you did make a huge mistake. And so it's interesting. I mean, if I had a ton of money, I'd put it behind Dog.
I would too. If I had a ton of money, I'd put it behind Dog.
So would I, because that's at least a wrestling product that is a wrestling product. So I didn't buy my lottery ticket yet, but I'll go get one.
I get my one a week.
I refuse to play the lottery because I've already won so much in life that I don't think I will win anything more.
Like the coolest friends you could ever have.
That is true.
You're GD right, man. And I can't stress that enough. And Jay's going to get a little emotional again, how humble I am, because where we went from where this thing is now, this vehicle, this vessel, it's amazing, man. And I think about, like, Doty's been here for the majority of it, so he knows what I'm talking about. Luthez has been here for the majority of it, so he knows what I'm talking about. But when you got like Matthew Underwood, who, Matthew, I think, joined us right around the Lightning One era. And Traducus is a guy who's been around, he was around early during COVID. He jumped in on what we were doing over here. And Polka Dot Pam jumps in from time to time, Mandy, and I don't mean to exclude anybody here in the chat, Paladin. All you guys jumped in on this live stream that we do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And it's crazy to me. I don't get it. I appreciate it. I love it. But it's just, and then Traducus says, I was an NWA fan since the Tharp era. Whew, that was a tough time. But it's one of these things where it's like, this is cool, man. And yeah, like, no joke. I feel very fortunate to have this community that you guys are all a part of. And, it wasn't built on just my back, but on the backs of everybody who joins the chat, everyone who shares it, likes it, comments, subscribes, buys a t-shirt, follows us. Buy the shirt. Yeah, buy the shirt. And of course, Jaden and DKM were literally on the first and second podcast that I ever did. And I'll never forget that. And I will always allow them to be a part of whatever I'm doing because they were there. And it's funny because I just found this on my computer, and I'm going to try to bring it up here real quick because it's a free for all and I can kind of take the show anywhere I want to. This was a flyer for one of our shows way back when we were calling ourselves Talk NWA. And I'm going to see if I can bring it up now. Boom. Do you guys remember those flyers on our old Blog Talk Radio?
Ooh la la. The
maestro of wrestling, the bull, Manimal, Chance Prophet. that picture of the Stros when he was literally feuding with Adam Pearce for the 10 pounds of gold. You guys, like, we've been doing this for some time now. This Flyers probably like from 2010. So it's been a wild ride.
Do you know what freaked me out?
What's that?
So Monday I was just home and holiday for me and everything like that, and done everything. So I actually sat down and watched Raw. A very rarity, but there was something on it I wanted to see. And a lot of things on it I didn't want to see, but watched anyway. And one of the things that I did watch was the main event between Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal, tall guy. And boy, were they lapping up on Tony Khan. Gee whiz, that guy's an idiot. But anyway, they said something. They go, it's been 7 years since Jinder Mahal won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And I sat there and thought to myself, it's been 7 years? That's impossible. Because it feels like it was, 3 years ago or something like that. Thank God it wasn't. But, 3 years ago is when, what's his name won the Universal title. So, and he's still champion and never defending the belt. That's a nice gimmick. How do I get it?
Everybody gives him a lot of slack on that, but he has to have that late schedule because of his health reasons.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know why, but it's just like, and let's face it, one of the reasons every one of his matches is a big match is because they're rare.
A lot of the boxing, back in the day, the champion defended every single time against the Bum of the Month Club. But when Evander Holyfield or Mike Tyson defended, it felt like something special. Yeah. It's nice it would be to have Roman defending the championship every 5 seconds, or defending it every day or every week or every month or every year. It really does make him feel unlike any other champion, and unlike Brock Lesnar, who was just not defending it because he didn't want to be there and it cost too much. At least the guy had leukemia, and he fought back to do all of the stuff that he's doing nowadays. He fought back from bad booking and suffering succotash.
You damn right, suffering succotash.
Well,
he deserves honestly everything he got right now.
Well, I mean, look at UFC. Sometimes you're lucky to get a champion who will defend the title once a year. I mean, in his over 650 days as champion, Francis Ngannou defended the title once. So it's just, I don't know what it is, but it's just.
It's just.
It's a bigger thing. But yeah. My point is how time flies. That was my point.
So this past weekend, and I haven't really talked about it much, I was at the United Wrestling Network Championship Wrestling TV taping at their new home in Long Beach at the formerly known as the Thunder Studios. And that was where they first filmed the first the first primetime live series. I was the only spectator allowed in the building because of COVID restrictions. And it was really cool to be back in that building again, to see the setup. I shared some pictures on social media. I felt like the venue looked great. But one of the fun things was going back and seeing some friends who've been around for a long time. One of the referees, Chris Massey, is a friend. He now works with their medical staff. But you guys might remember main event James Morgan, who was at one point the Heritage Champion for the NWA, or excuse me, for the United Wrestling Network. He was also there. And I walked up to him and we were talking, hey, what's going on?
Did they have the new Heritage belt yet?
What's that?
Did they have the new Heritage belt yet?
No, you know what? It's funny because I was talking to Dave Marquez and he showed me the picture of it. It had arrived at his house before the show started, but not early enough for him to bring it to the show. So also news flash. One of the, actually, I probably shouldn't say it, so I will not. But I walked up to James Morgan, somebody who I've known forever, and he said, "Hey, it's been a while." And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "You want to feel old?" He goes, "Sure." I said, "My daughter, who saw a lot of your matches when she was like 5, and she's 19 now."
I feel old.
Yeah, me too.
Jaden and DKM, literally, we would be doing this podcast on a Saturday, and I'd have to excuse myself to go take care of a baby who was crying. That baby now is 10 years old.
You let that happen. You know, it's weird how there's always things in your life that make you realize that you're older than you realize. And you know, one of them is when you go to a fast food joint, you look at the person behind the counter and wonder when they started hiring 12-year-olds. But I remember very much in church this one couple being pregnant and, you know, them having a little girl and everything like that. And I do not know why her specifically, but she's the one that as she grew up, I would just sit there and go, she can't be that old yet. And of course, you know, now she's like in her late 20s and married some baseball player and everything. And it's just like, I don't know how that's possible. I mean, it's bad enough when I'm sitting there going, my older son is 25. You know, who let that happen?
Right.
He's not in his early 20s. I don't know.
Time makes a fool out of all of us, that's for sure.
It sure does.
DK remembers when David versus Goliath was current events. Now it's history.
Mm-hmm. I do remember that.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
So the member bears.
That dog was that was my first talking dog was Davy and Goliath.
Hey, Davy.
Oh, Davy.
I think you and I are probably the only two that remember that or know what that is.
I know what it is. Davy and Goliath. I gotcha. Some more of the comments real quick. Let's see. Trideca says, or the NWA could focus on their tag division more. They got the Crockett Cup pay-per-view, and no other company has a pay-per-view dedicated to tag team wrestling. It would give them a separate identity besides them having a bunch of managers.
But will it be a pay-per-view in this next coming year?
No, I think for the time being, pay-per-views are a thing of the past for the NWA.
Which is smart, by the way.
Yeah, look, again, I don't remember if we talked about this on Power, if it was you and I, DK, last week, or if this was me talking about this on the pre-party. But if you just do the math, and if 235 is a good number for their pay-per-views, and you do the $25, let's call it $50, you're only making about $10,000, right?
Which is splitting.
Yeah, well, that's $10,000 over 2 nights.
No, but you're splitting it with whoever.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yes. So you're splitting that with Fight. You're splitting it with, and then that doesn't, you know. Again, we talked about all the professionals that you're paying. You're talking about all the wrestlers that you're paying. You're talking about paying for catering, paying to keep the lights on, paying for the building. That is insane. That you're only making $10,000 off of surely what's at least a $50,000 night, maybe 2 nights at $50,000. So if the CW is like, hey, guess what? We're going to pay you to do these kind of shows, and we'll pay you a little bit more to do these kind of shows. Well, then why wouldn't you do that? You know, and yeah, it's going to be a yearly event. I don't foresee it going away. Hard Times was their first inaugural pay-per-view, and I think that will always in some way, shape, or form exist. I don't think Crockett Cup is going to go away. I don't think the anniversary show is going to go away. I think these are all just kind of going to be metamorphosis from pay-per-views to signature live events. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a smart move on their part. And if at some point the NWA gets to a point where the demand for a pay-per-view exists and that they can pay for, or the fans will be willing to pay for that content, then maybe they will reintroduce it later.
I think, I don't know. Are there going to be quote unquote regular TV tapings as part of this CW thing?
Yeah, the weekend that they were out, and Paul confirmed this on Tuesday's show. But so initially the plan was that they were going to do the signature live event, which was Paranoia. And then the next day they had TV tapings in the PBS studios. Those TV tapings are going to look exactly what Power looked like from Nashville, but from a different building, as similar as they can get.
Hopefully you can see the fans there.
No, they're not going to do that. And
That's
I think
it's so stupid.
I agree. In fact, I talked to somebody who worked on production for the first tapings of Power after Samhain, and that person was advocating include the fans, and they said no, that's not what we're going to do. And I think that's just the most ridiculous thing. I don't get it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, let's take away something. Let's take away the fact that somebody was actually supporting this thing, and let make them even more worth and not important.
Yeah, I mean, I remember after the pandemic, people were really questioning whether they should bring the fans back in or not. Anyway, hey Jay, did you know it's 9/11 and we should probably wrap up because I'm half asleep?
Yeah, we could actually wrap up right now. I do want to say, again, thanks to everyone that's joined us today in the chat. I do want to acknowledge our sponsors for the show. If you are in need of energy and you like having energy on hand, W is a cheaper alternative to some of the energy drinks that you currently are using. They use a more cleaner energy consistency. And of course, every time you buy W and you use the promo code, the Alliance blog, your boy Jay gets a little bit of a kickback. So if you enjoy having
use
energy,
the code.
It's the Alliance blog.
No, use it. I'm telling them, use it.
Yeah,
you have to use a code. I learned that the hard way.
There is the link in the bio now. If you click the link that's in there right now, it will put the code in for you. But apparently when Jaden did it, it did not give him that option. So if you go to buy it, make sure you use the Alliance blog code. Also, I want to say our sponsors over at Trophy Smack, get yourself a title belt that you could use for any event, any promotion, maybe for your small business, or maybe you just want to have a title belt that is exclusively to you. You design it, you get to make it, and it's very affordable and high quality. I had a belt, but now it's gone because it's around the waist of the person who won the title belt. And then, of course, lastly, we have a merchandise shop. You can order T-shirts. You can order your wife a swimsuit. We have 2 pieces, tank tops, even fanny packs. So go to all these links are in the video description, and make sure that if you want to help support the Alliance blog, that's the best way to do it. Of course, if you don't have money to do any of that stuff, that's cool too. I'm happy that you guys are here watching. Give the video a thumbs up, like it, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. It really helps us grow with the algorithm. DK, if people can follow you, if people want to follow you on social media, how do they do it?
Well, first they check into a psychiatric ward.
Fair enough.
And then after that, they can search most major social media sites for at DKM FWTX.
All right. And then
Jaden,
say that again.
And don't annoy me.
And don't annoy. That's the important part. And Jaden, if folks want to follow you on socials, they really can't because you're kind of a hermit, right?
Yeah. I don't like people, and I love trolling them. Like, I love going on the Discord. If you want to talk to me, I'm on the Alliance podcast Discord, and I love saying things just to watch certain people get all flaky about it. It's kind of entertaining. But
that's almost enough to make me want to go back.
Yeah, I just like watching somebody go all snowflakey, and it's kind of entertaining for me for some reason.
I feel like you're calling me out here.
No, it's not you.
All right.
No.
And then, of course,
it's not me because I'm not there.
Real quick, if you're going to buy if you're going to go to the Trophy Smack or link and buy stuff, I challenge you guys to see if you can have about as many Trophy Smack titles as either Tony Khan or Billy Corgan does. I challenge you guys.
You will go broke trying to do that, but I also challenge you. Make sure use the link in the bio, and that should also take you there. And if you do make a belt, post a photo of it on our Discord. I would love to see what it looks like. Maybe I should open up a title page on there where people can show off their titles and their replicas. That might be kind of cool.
Where? But what's the link? Where can I find the link?
For Trophy Smack?
Yeah.
It's in the video description. So if you're on this video right now, I will also pull it up right now. Give me just 1 second, and I'll pull it up here and put it in the link, or put it in the chat. But it is, let me see, trophysmack.com/the Alliance blog. So I guess I should have known that one.
I would have thought so.
Yeah, you would think, but it's in the it's on the video chat right now. The trophysmack.com/the Alliance blog, and that'll take you right to our referral link if you're so inclined to make yourself a championship belt. I'm going to actually put one together. I have an idea. I've already shared those photos on our Discord. And again, the link to our Discord is also in the video description. If you want to join it, we'd love to have you there. Jaden will purposely try to pick on you and annoy you. But other than that, it's a good time. Plus, we're also doing our year-end voting for Wrestlers of the Year. All the links are in our Discord. We'll also be putting those on Twitter and on Facebook later this week, probably tomorrow. But I guess that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you again so much for being here. You can also follow me, this wrestling website, the Alliance blog, on all social media. So, check us out there. And until next time, we'll see you guys at the matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at the Alliance blog. And until next time, we are the Alliance.